high level, what I've learned is really that we complicate things so much and we forget that we are, biological beings. We are animals first, and like our bodies know how to birth. And even though the world that we live in will tell us that we need studies and we need data and we need scientists to tell us what is safe for us, the truth is we know what is safe for us and what feels good. It's the same way that we say a mother's intuition is always right. We can't say that and then not say like your body knows what it's doing.
Welcome to the Well Nourished Mother podcast. This is a show for women who desire a deeper, more mindful and meaningful pregnancy, birth, and motherhood experience. In this space, we bring so much reverence to the rite of passage that is the maiden to mother journey. I'm your host, Lauren Fortuna Flock, founder of Nest and Nourish. I'm an ex-nurse turned birth worker, holistic nutritionist, and somatic coaching student with a fiery passion for birth prep and motherhood prep that blends the head and the heart. Join me for inspiring conversations with experts, mothers, and all-around badass wise women, exploring all the ways we can nourish ourselves, body, mind, and heart in pregnancy, birth, and motherhood. This space will help you cultivate the knowledge, practices, and resources you need to be the most embodied, vibrant, authentic, intuitive, and well-nourished mother you deserve to be. So welcome. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 1. I'm Lauren, your host. I just want to say a few things before we get into our first interview, just to kind of lay the foundation for this show. So a super quick little bit about me to get started. I'm an ex-nurse of 10 years who recently let that identity and career go for a number of reasons that I'm sure I'll get into in another episode down the road. The birth of my daughter 2 years ago and just becoming a mother in general was really the catalyst for a lot of change and transformation in my life. I got super crystal clear on my values, my intuition roared loudly, and I learned to trust the hell out of it. So when my babe was super little, I completed a doula/online business mentorship because, being a brand new mom just wasn't enough on my plate. I've been calling myself a doula or a birth worker for the last little while. I just knew that I wanted to serve women, mothers in some way, all, centered around the idea of becoming a mother. But what I'm learning is what I'm more interested in is how we prepare for birth on a deeper level, not just the knowledge, not just the analytical. I want to get into the creative, the body, not just the mind. And how I'm more interested in how we're supported as new mothers. So really getting into the deeper aspects of it all, not just focusing on the event of birth. So for now, I'm calling myself a maiden to mother guide. I don't know, it fits for now, and I'm sure it'll change and morph as I sink deeper into this new business and career path and just continue to get more clear on what it is I want to offer women. I'm also a holistic nutritionist, and most recently, I'm a student once again. I'm in a somatic coaching program for the next long while. So my plan is to blend somatic healing and coaching with birth preparation, education, and support for the overall maiden to mother journey. Journey. I kind of hate that word, journey, but it's fitting in this case, I guess. So that's a tiny bit about me for now. I'm sure I'll get into a whole lot more as we go along. I've been toying with this podcast idea for a long, long time now. It really is a passion project of mine. And, I just realized that I've been having these really incredible conversations with friends and other new moms, with other birth workers, other moms trying to build businesses, just such a wide variety of really deep, insightful stuff, like really real stuff, just themes that are really relevant right now in my own season of matrescence and settling into this new role of mother. So I thought, why not start interviewing all these incredible women that I truly admire and share these stories, the wisdom, the knowledge, and eventually the somatic practices that I'm learning too. So what do I mean by the well-nourished mother? I'll read you an Instagram post I made a while ago that I think lays it out pretty well. The well-nourished mother. A well-nourished mother understands that to be fully present and connected to her child, she must prioritize her own health, body, mind, and heart, and consistently fill her own cup. She tunes in and listens to the roar of her intuition, trusting it will never lead her astray. She confidently goes against the grain, never held hostage by the worry of what others will think of her, only guided by her love, her values, and her integrity. She unapologetically questions the norm, demands answers, sets boundaries, and stands up for those she loves in true mama bear style. She accepts the help of others instead of trying to do it all herself, because she knows in her bones that motherhood belongs back in the village. She rides the waves of emotion that flow through her without guilt or judgment, because she understands they are signposts of her deepest needs and desires. A well-nourished mother is gentle with herself. She knows this shit is hard, but it's a journey, a transformation, a matrescence, filled with endless growth and overflowing love. So yeah, I just think that kind of lays it out pretty well. This is all something that I'm personally working towards. It's something I desire all mothers can experience with the right resources and support, and by doing, the deeper inner work that needs to be done to allow yourself to be a priority in your own life. So nourish, what does it mean? It means to provide the food and other substances necessary for growth, health, and good condition. In my definition, it's much more than just food and substances. It's more than just the body or the physical we're nourishing. But the part of that definition that I like is that it's for growth, health, and good condition. We're nourishing ourselves to grow, to heal, and to thrive. I mean, all mothers deserve that. And yeah, it's easier said than done, of course. But that's what these conversations will explore: the how, the why. So truly, the point of this podcast is to share, to validate, to educate, so that you empower yourself and can thrive as a mother. And without it feeling like another thing you need to add to the list, Being a mother is the most incredible privilege, and it's really hard. It's confronting. There is so much healing that can happen right alongside all of the transformation. I read something the other day that said, "My son is 1,000 prayers answered. He reveals in me all the parts of me that are hungry for reconciliation. I am humbled to be a mother healing in front of my child. He deserves the best of me, and with each passing day, his presence inspires my refinement." Oh, wow. Like, how beautifully said. So that's what I'm working on in my own life, and that's what I hope for you. All this to say, I'm not some fully healed and perfectly well-nourished mother and some kind of authority with all the answers to tell you. I would actually say I'm not very well nourished, at least physically right now. I'm struggling with feeding myself well and skipping meals and living off of coffee, but that's the point. I'm on this journey. Damn it, why is that word so good? All right, I think I need to just accept that. Apparently I love that word. So I'm on this journey with you all. We're learning and growing together. You'll never find me telling you what to do or telling you what choices to make or giving you all the answers for your pregnancy or your birth or your life. My desire is that, maybe you learn some new knowledge or you shift your perspective or, hear a story that really opens something up for you. But the real goal here is that you're not just listening for more external advice, external voices. My hope is that eventually the loudest voice that you hear is your own intuition, your own knowing, and to trust that above all else. And, this podcast is a little bit selfish too. I'm using it as a tool for my own play and healing as well. It's a place to allow myself to be messy, to be authentic, to be a beginner at something, which is super hard for a recovering perfectionist, and to share my voice and thoughts and feelings. Before the first couple interviews I recorded for the show, I had this childhood memory suddenly pop into my head, something I haven't thought of since that moment, pretty much. It was one of my older brother and I, probably lower elementary school age. And we're lying on the floor with this white little tape deck stereo recorder. And, we've popped our tape in and we're recording ourselves pretending to be hosts of a radio show. I think we're announcing different songs and just bantering back and forth true AM radio host style. But what really stood out to me in this memory was just the feeling of it. It was just pure play and fun and enjoyment. So that is the energy I'm bringing into this project. Yes, we'll talk about more serious topics, and it's all with a deep respect for women, for mothers, for birth, but it's all with this energy of play and fun. It's so easy to get caught up in the pressure of a new project, the rules of the podcast world, the crazy business strategy, and how to launch, and blah, blah, blah. When I get stuck in all of that, I'll be reminding myself to return to that energy of childlike play. Life gets to be fun, and this is me sharing a creation and building a business that is aligned with that. Okay. That's enough rambling for today. Let's meet our very first guest, Briana Faust. Hi, welcome, Briana. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Can you just start by, telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Briana. I'm a mom of two little girls. I live in Victoria. And I now am a full-time mom right now for the time being, which is a transition in itself, as I was just saying. But really, I own a company called Hohmcoming, and it is really a platform for women to reconnect to their bodies. I really feel passionate about women and mothers specifically feeling safe in their bodies as they are, as they were designed, as we are biologically here for. Um, and it's really a place where I just want to hold space for women to hear themselves. And so it's just like this really beautiful place that I've connected with wonderful humans like yourself. And it's just such a journey for me because I never really anticipated having children. It wasn't really like and a deep need desire for me. Although now that I've had them, I'm like, maybe it was, but I wasn't really like tuned into myself, which has been a huge part of my own journey of just like really realizing how far away from myself that I actually got and how much I was allowing the outside to dictate, what I wanted, what my life looked like, how I moved through the world. And so having babies, having my first daughter at I was going to say 17, but I meant 30. Um,
Big difference.
really big difference. My first daughter at 30, so she's going to be 4, was when I was really like, oh, wow. Like with that whole motherhood, like transition of, okay, so I'm a different human now. And it kind of got me into this space of, I'm not a different human. I'm just who I always have been, but I have no space for anything else anymore. And so I've kind of been grappling with that and figuring out what that means to me and who I am as a mother and all that. And I've since had another baby and she's almost 9 months old, which is nuts. But yeah, in a little nutshell, that's me.
Amazing. Yes, homecoming is such a beautiful offering. I've poked around in there a little bit and taken some of the classes. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we kind of really dive deep, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second.
Mhm.
Can you share one word to describe your kind of current phase or stage of womanhood or phase or
Mm.
season of motherhood right now? Because I'm still a baby mother. My daughter is under 2 years old, but I already have realized that, there really are different stages and phases or
Mm.
seasons. And yeah, so is something kind of coming to mind for you?
Yeah, the first word that came to mind was growth and then
Mm.
exploration. It's like
Mm.
I love that you say that. I was just thinking yesterday, I was just like having this dreamy moment of like we're constantly as women shedding and rebirthing ourselves and just like become like we're growing into this I don't know version of ourselves. I think we're constantly doing that, but I think you're absolutely right. And I would say for this stage, very much like grounded growth is kind of
Mm.
where the feelings are going. I wouldn't say I'm a seasoned mother, but my daughter is almost 4, which is such a stage, like such a fun, incredible stage to watch them really become like a little girl. It's so interesting and exciting and frustrating to like have them grow, but then to also have sort of this newer child who's 9 months old almost, and you're kind of watching them explore the world. It's just like it feels like, okay, this is what I'm here for. Like this, I'm
Mm.
good here. I think.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know you've shared a lot on social media about how your first pregnancy and initially becoming a mother really flipped your world upside down and changed who you were at the core, or like you kind of said, more like strip back to who you really are. Can you kind of take us back there and maybe start there with your story?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love talking about my story. It's so like, because I think it's just like, it doesn't feel like anything special. It just feels like a real experience that when I look back on as this different version, I'm like, okay, that girl, she was naive or just like didn't really understand, didn't know herself, didn't know her body. And so with my first pregnancy, to just give you like a little picture, So my husband and I, my now husband and I were in a long distance relationship. I was living on the mainland and I was doing like this sales job that I hated in Vancouver, and he was in Victoria here. And so we were doing this like back and forth thing. And so when I got pregnant, I was alone in a city I didn't like, in a job I didn't like, not a city I didn't like, but an area of my life that I was like, this is not where I want to be long term. This is not my dream. It doesn't feel right, even though it's like this idea of what I, thought I wanted my life to look like. And so I went through like all my appointments were done without my partner, with myself. And so I was literally just like, okay, like midwife, like tell me what's up. I went to, it was so weird though, my first experience. So I wanted to go like do the thing that you can, like I took the pregnancy test, and then I went to the doctor. Like we had this walk in down the street, and I was like, I'm just gonna go there. And like that's what you do. You go to the doctor and they confirm it. And it was this male doctor who, just my first experience of being a pregnant woman was this not gruff doctor, but just like he was just immediately like, you should read what to expect when you're expecting. And he literally said 1 in 4 pregnancies don't work out. That's what he said to me. And I was like, do you want me to read this? Like that's all I have to do is like read a book and then go home and sit with this 1 in 4 information. So I was like, okay, all right. So it was just like already was like, okay, well, I guess that's what the doctor said. Like I didn't go order the book or anything, but I did just kind of take that in. And then, but what really, looking back on my pregnancy, is I did everything that my midwife said I should do for the most part. Like I went to all the appointments. I did what you kind of like learn to do, or what you know of that happens when you go through a pregnancy, and do all the checkups and all the check-ins and all of the things and all of the tests and all of those. And I just did it kind of on autopilot. There was really no like, hey, does this feel right? Is this? And like, I remember feeling really exhausted in my pregnancy and just like frustrated. Like it was just like, it was too much. And I just, not the pregnancy piece, just like my life had become too much. And when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I was trying to like, I don't know, it just feels like I was like grasping for all these answers outside of myself. And not one part of me was like, how do I feel about this? I never really like asked myself that. I never thought to turn it inward. And then when it really started to happen is when it came to planning my birth. So the birth with my first one, I just assumed that I would have her in a hospital. And by then I'd moved over to here to Victoria, and was living with my partner, and we were doing like the final appointments all together. But and my midwife was lovely. But we started talking about like, where are you going to birth? Where are you going to have your baby? And I was like, well, just a hospital. I didn't really think of any other option. And then, but I did know specifically that I wanted calm and quiet and dark. I needed a dark birth. And she's like, well, you may not get that at a hospital. Anyway,
glad she was honest.
Yeah, like she was just like, actually, you know what? I asked her a question, and now that I look back on it, I'm like surprised that she answered it. But I said, what would you say? Like, what should I do? Like, should I do a home birth or a hospital birth? And she was like, she gave me all this information, and she was like very, she just kind of gave me the information, tried not to give me an opinion, but she goes, look, they're both great. But as a midwife, there's nothing quite like, a home birth when that's an option for somebody. And then my husband was like, yeah, well, I don't know why you like, let's just do a home birth. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really like think that you would be into that either. Anyway, we ended up having a home birth, but it was lovely. It just like, again, looking back on it, I'm like, whoa, I didn't think to like, I'm not even sure how to articulate this, because it was a really lovely home birth. I was well attended. It was like, it was by all accounts, by the book, and wonderful. It wasn't even that long. It was like 10 hours. But I was so like out of my body in this experience that I was just like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm. That autonomy piece was kind of missing.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that there were any other options, and I didn't even think to ask. That being said, I do remember like my final midwife appointments, and she was like, do you have any questions? And I never had any questions. I was just like, no, like I'm good. We're just trucking along. Like if you say I'm good, I'm good. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
can tell me that everything's fine, then I'm good. And we did, I remember I did a bunch of stretch and sweeps and stuff. I was like, get it. Like, I just was so like disconnected from my body and like wanted what everyone around me was like, when's the baby coming? How's that happening? Like, how are you feeling? And I was just like, yeah, I guess I should figure out when the baby's coming. So it was just, when I look back on my pregnancy, even though it was like, again, by all accounts, like fine, I did have a moment in the beginning of my pregnancy where it was the first scan. And I have a fairly like, I now know a very long cycle. Like we're talking 40 days, like way longer than is probably normal, but a long cycle. And so when I got pregnant and it showed that I was pregnant, I went in for my like the 9-week scan or whatever my midwife had suggested. And the ultrasound technician was like, you're either not pregnant or you're barely pregnant. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Like I'm pregnant. I know that I am. And then all of a sudden I had like women's hospital calling me and they were like, essentially they were like, the pregnancy is probably not viable without explaining that to me. So it was this really weird, like whirlwind of like, why am I going to the hospital? What's happening? I didn't even know what the procedures were that they were telling me. Like it was just this really weird void. And I do remember in that moment being like, I'm just going to wait it out. There's no need for me to go to the hospital right now. Like, if I'm not pregnant, fine, my body will tell me. But also, like, this is like, there was just like way too much energy at me of like, you got to do this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to preface, like, I know that there's multiple conversations I've had since then where ultrasounds will share something that becomes a bigger issue than it needs to be, or something like that. So just wanted to share that for anybody listening who's experienced that before as well, or something similar. But it was there's so many layers to that pregnancy. And I'm so grateful for it because it led me to my last experience. But yeah, my daughter came out 9.5 pounds and just like in my living room. And it was quite a experience. And then I had a very similar sort of, well, from what I can tell is similar from other women, just kind of like, okay, now what? Like the whole postpartum piece was not something that I quite expected or prepared myself for. And so, yeah.
I think it's such a common experience that, for a lot of women, they get pregnant or even with any health concern, really. And I shouldn't say pregnancy is a health concern. That came out wrong. Definitely not. Separate. What I mean is when you interact with the medical system, a lot of the time, what happens is you end up just going with the flow. You're kind of hopping onto the conveyor belt and it's like a machine and it's pumping you through and you just kind of go along for the ride because you assume that it's in your best interest. Why would I question it? Why would I not trust the doctors? Why would I, you know what I mean? So I think I've heard that a similar experience. A lot of women have voiced that, yeah, they feel like they just go with the flow because they don't know that they can speak up or ask questions or, put a pause to anything that's happening. And I find that so interesting because, I was a nurse for 10 years and I've just recently let that go and I'm stepping more into my birth work and coaching. But yeah, so having that like insider look on the healthcare system and seeing it from both sides, like how we, as a nurse, how even I did that to people in a way where you just kind of assume, you throw information at people because you know what's coming next. So you don't think you have to tell them what's coming next. It's a very interesting, yeah, back and forth. But yeah. So do you want to take us maybe onto I know you ended up free birthing your second baby. Can you tell us a little bit about so you had this first experience where you felt a little bit like you just kind of went with the flow. How did you start to kind of develop that inner knowing or, tuning in, getting out of your head and into your body? And how did you come to free birthing your baby?
That's a good question. I'm still like integrating what that whole experience was, because if you were to ask me 5 years ago, like, first of all, do you want kids? And then second of all, like, do you think you'll free birth a baby? I would be like, what is free birth and why would I ever do that? Like, it was such a, I didn't, it just came like so organically, and I didn't even like, yeah, it's, so my next pregnancy, so we waited about 3 years, not on purpose. It's just the way that things went. But after my first daughter, it was such a process of unraveling for me, not because I had a bad experience, but because something within me just knew that there was more and that there was something else. And I didn't know what else. And I don't even know if I would say that I now know what else, but my body it was just so clear to me to go this route. So I ended up, I mean, then COVID happened. I did my Reiki certification. And I was like I've always been into sort of energy work and body work and, self awareness, like from a mental perspective, and really like, manifestation and all that jazz. But I had never really come to it from like a body space. And like, I just started exploring it, and I started working with women in pregnancy. I was doing Reiki for them, and it was incredible. Like, it was so beautiful to be able to work with women and help them shift energy and like clear space. And what I learned in doing that as well is that we're all so bogged down, just as women in general, is that we carry so much subconsciously and unconsciously that we just don't know is there. And so I just started doing that work with myself and for myself as well. And it just kind of unraveled that way. When I knew before I got pregnant that I didn't want to go to the doctors. I didn't want medical involvement in my pregnancy because I knew that it would take me out of my body. And I'm somebody who really needs my own space. Like, I really need space to be able to do anything. I can't hear myself otherwise. There's those baby sounds.
Beautiful baby sound.
And so even before I got pregnant, I knew that I didn't want involvement. And I remember I told one of my family members that the reaction I got was so extreme that I knew that it would be like a secret personal thing too. And I don't blame her reaction either. It was just came out of sort of concern for me and her experience with the medical system and her trust for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't trust the medical system. I just knew that my body wanted to do it a different way. And so it really organically unraveled that way. It was this inner knowing that I didn't know at the time was an inner knowing. And the words are not coming, but it was like I was meant to go down that path. And then once I became curious about that and started, I did get a midwife. I had a midwife because I, again, wasn't sure. I didn't trust myself enough to say like, nope, nobody's involved. But I did decide no ultrasounds, no testing, nothing like that. But I did go to my midwife appointments. We ended up skipping a few because there was no need to go to them if I wasn't doing anything. We did do the Doppler because I wanted to hear the heartbeat, but I don't know if that was something that I would do again. And then all of these wonderful people started showing up in my life that were showing me that this was a possibility. Like this woman that I met randomly over the internet, just one day in conversation, just let me know that she free birthed. And I was like, oh, tell me more. I knew that I didn't want involvement in my pregnancy. I didn't know at that time that I didn't want involvement in my birth. So that unraveled throughout my pregnancy. And I just kept getting all of these connections that affirmed for me that doing it this way was not wrong, and that I wasn't unsafe, that I wasn't putting my baby in danger, and all of these things that I think people think about, when we think about what free birth is. A lot of people think like, oh, that's dangerous, or it wasn't even really like this radical decision that I'm like, oh, I'm a free birther. And like, it just kind of gradually came about for me. And then I connected with this birth keeper, a local birth keeper, and had some conversations with her. And she just like let me talk and asked all my questions back to me and trusted me in a way that I don't think I have ever been trusted before, or at least not in that way. And so it just was like, for example, I would ask her questions like, well, what if this happens? And she would just be like, what if that happens? And she would just like turn it back on me. And for me, I also had somebody doing that. I had a coach doing that for me from the business perspective too. And so it was just this like interesting time in my life where people were trusting me with my own opinion, with my own thoughts, with my own feelings. And it was wild because then I was like, why was I not trusting myself before? Like why? And then I had all of these thoughts of like, hey, we are literally, born for this biologically. Our bodies know what they're doing. There's no reason that we would be created and like live for however long, and then like medicine comes in and saves us, like
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously we've got sanitation, we've got hygiene, we've got all of these things now that are even working for us even more. And why can't I have that super quiet, intimate, beautiful birth? And when I was envisioning my birth, there was a real inward process to this pregnancy too. Like I didn't want involvement. What that looked like as well was like I didn't want to talk to friends, I didn't want to talk to family. It was really, really inward. And looking back on that, I could have explained that a little more to my family, but it was I had this vision of like just me in a dark cave with my two babies. And it was just like, keep it all close. I needed it all to be really like quiet, dark, and internal. And that just kept coming up for me time and time again. And then when it came time to envision the birth, um, it was literally I wanted my daughter, my husband, and me. That was all that I saw in my house. And that's what happened. Like even things like the birth pool that I had the last time, like I didn't want my birth to be a production, and it felt like a production the first time. I had to rent the birth pool, I had to sign the waivers, I had to do all this. And then when it came to this pregnancy, I remember being at the midwife and her being like, okay, we need to, like, you need to sign, I needed to sign paperwork to basically have the right to birth in my home, like to just have a home birth with a midwife attending. And it felt just like really icky to me. And I know that that's just my own experience. It was just like, why do I have to sign something? Like I'm not putting my signature on this. And they were wonderful. My midwives were great. I don't think they were trying to like, it was just part of their protocol. Um,
I remember that form too.
it was just like it for this pregnancy, and I couldn't remember if I'd had that for my first one. I must have, but I guess it was just one of the things. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll sign that. This time it was like, why? I was just thinking about it more. Like, why do I need to sign a piece of paper to say that I have the right to give birth to my child in my home? It just didn't sit right. And then with the birthing, I was going to go rent a birth pool, but they needed like the sign off from my midwife in order to release the birth pool to me. And I was like, no, I get to decide. So it was just this like really interesting turn of events that opened up the doorway for me to have this birth. And I'm so grateful. Every time I thought about my birth as well, it was like, if I don't do this, because I knew my body wanted it so bad, but my brain would come in and be like, look, like, what if something bad happens? This could happen, this could happen. And then, I mean, there's also getting your husband on board as well to understand what that means. And thankfully he got there. But, if I didn't do it this way, because I was able to hear my body, or like, I just knew something was pulling me here. And if I didn't do it this way, that I would regret it and I would be missing a whole opportunity, because I knew that this was happening for a reason for me. Um, but what I learned as well is that we have so many things in the way, whether it be, like opinions of friends and family, or whether it be our experience with the medical system, our experience with birth previously, like, I was just talking to a friend of mine who had a C-section the first time, and she really wants to experience it a different way this time. But she's got her own experience of, what she's comfortable with, and what that's going to look like for her. So everybody's experience is different. But it's very clear to me that there's a lot riding on the external, and it's very hard for us to like trust our inner selves, because a lot of the times where it takes us is more of like a biological place versus a logical place. Like,
Yeah, I feel like as women, as just people in the world right now, we live up in our heads so much. We're so disconnected from our emotions, our bodies, our intuition. A lot of the time, we don't even know where to start.
yeah.
Like, how did you start to tune into your body, or to like follow those little intuitive hits that, something can be different, or I do want something different?
Yeah, I think in my experience, it was really a process of like just trying it and trying little things. And I'm grateful that pregnancy is so long because I was able to try it throughout the whole pregnancy. And then also realize that, like it's all good. But for me, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important for me, and I think everyone, to find more space to just be in your own energy. And with being in my own energy, I mean, like, I need space in my life where I don't have my phone, where I'm just like even sometimes just like a walk outside, but just an opportunity for your own voice to come through, because there are distractions absolutely everywhere. And I so I really made it a priority to create that space. And some days it looked like, yeah, a quick walk outside without my phone. And some days it looked like a long, yoga session or meditation. So it always varied, but I knew that that was necessary for me. And then I would get these like little nudges, and they were familiar to me because I'd already had the nudge to not get an ultrasound. Let's just use that as the example. And it just felt like, I don't want this. And I felt safe enough to know that I didn't need it. So the safety piece is really just slowly, it sounds silly to say, but you really just need to trust your body and trust what it's saying. And when it feels scary, like your body will also let you know if it's not safe. Like when we talk about it from an energetic standpoint too, like nothing will come up for you that you're not ready for. And your body won't bring anything to you that you aren't ready to see. And so if these things are coming, know that they're coming for a purpose. And so I had that sort of the Reiki energetic side of my life that was helping me through this. And then I had people to talk to as well. But as I started to move through my pregnancy, it was really wild to see how these people just very organically showed up in my life. Through a conversation with a friend that I had no idea, what her birth story was, or we literally had just met, and somehow there was no reason for the conversation to go that way, but it happened to. And then it was like this whole expansive moment for me to be like, oh, so that is actually possible. I've been thinking about this, but I didn't think it was going to be possible.
I love the little breadcrumbs leading you.
Yes. And it's so amazing. Like once you kind of commit to a journey or decide that it's safe to kind of like explore this side, things do show up in your life, and people show up in your life, and community is there. And like the people, it was so amazing to me how it kind of unfolded, and it was so gradual. And then every person came. There was probably two or three people that really showed up in my life, and they came all at the right time. Like it was the woman who was like, yeah, I had a free birth. And I was like, oh, so that's a thing. Okay. And then I connected with this birth keeper, and I was like, hey, I've got some questions. And she was like, yes. And she held this great space for me. And then, yeah, so it's really a process. I would say the best thing to do is just give yourself space so that you can hear these nudges and feel these nudges in your body. And I think everybody feels them differently. I actually I feel them. It just feels like a knowing, I guess. And I think some people have more like clairaudient or claircognizance or something like that. But mine just feels like a knowing, and it's little by little trying things out. And so my first trial was like, okay, I'm just not going to do this ultrasound, and then see how I feel. And if I want it, it's always there if I want to go back and get that ultrasound, or it's always my midwife is there if I want to do whatever. So I always had a backup, but it was just, yeah.
I've been thinking, a lot about the difference between that like intuitive yes or fear yes, or intuitive no and fear no, and what that, how those feel differently in my body. So like an intuitive yes is like just no charge, no static, no chatter. It's just a yes. And like you said, I feel it similarly. It's like a knowing, or I feel it just like deep in my gut, or kind of like above my head. Yeah. Like just an inner knowing. There's no way to rationalize it. It's just there. And I know some people, definitely experience it differently. But I love how you said you just kind of played with it, even with like small things. You could do this with, what do I want to eat today? Open the fridge and like see where your gut takes you, and then test it out. How did it feel afterwards? I love that.
It's true. I think that there's what I really like, high level, what I've learned is really that we complicate things so much and we forget that we are, biological beings. We are animals first, and like our bodies know how to birth. And even though the world that we live in will tell us that we need studies and we need data and we need scientists to tell us what is safe for us, the truth is we know what is safe for us and what feels good. It's the same way that we say a mother's intuition is always right. We can't say that and then not say like your body knows what it's doing. And so it's been really clear for me for that. And some people will feel safer, you know, in a hospital or, where they've got more medical attention. And I think that's wonderful. Everybody has their own thresholds. But yeah, it sounds so complicated, but at the end of the day, like if we just strip everything back, get back to basics, we are designed to do this. And there's like, medicine doesn't need to tell us that we can't, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. And safety, like you said, it's so subjective and there's so much nuance to it. We can't have any discussion like in the birth realm without acknowledging that there is so much nuance. And like you said at the beginning, people have, past experiences and traumas and things that feed their idea of safety. So yeah, that's going to be so different for everybody. I would love to actually share a quote that I stole from your social media. Sure. I thought it was so great. You said, each pregnancy is a unique callback home, a deeper sinking into the woman that you are. And when we allow ourselves to truly be in our bodies during this time, we discover the primal woman within, the woman who knows, the woman who has done this 1,000 times before, the woman who trusts herself fully, the woman who is home. Whoa. So good.
Thank you for sharing that.
Can you maybe touch on any of that? And I guess actually what I really want to ask too is when did Hohmcoming start? Like after your second pregnancy or?
No. During my second pregnancy because I wanted to do it differently. Yeah, I wanted to do it differently. And I knew that I wasn't the only one that wanted to do it differently because every conversation I was having was just literally like, we're so fascinated at what our bodies can do because we don't learn about what our bodies can do. And I think, so Hohmcoming came about, I got pregnant in, I think August or something, September. And October, I was like, I'm launching a business. Like we have to do this. So I birthed 2 babies and now I'm like raising one and the other one's kind of, there doing its thing, but it's a little bit more quiet. But, the quote had something that I wanted to say about that. It's so important to me to see a world where women trust our bodies and we learn about our bodies. And I think I was given daughters for this reason. I think I was led to a free birth for this reason and I was just thinking that, I want to, after like when my daughter turns 1, I want to like do like what a year after free birth looks like because my postpartum experience has been so different too than my last one. Yeah. Can you share with me what resonated with you the most about that? I'm just some of those things just like come out of me and I don't remember why
yeah, of course. I just loved, how you said we discover the primal woman within, the woman who knows, the woman who has done this 1,000 times before, and the woman who trusts herself fully, the woman who is home. That idea of like coming home to yourself. I love that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I mean, obviously your business is called Hohmcoming.
Yeah. I'd love to. I think really what I want to get through with that is everybody's unique experience is different. And I think that when we think, like, if you think about every image we've ever seen, everything we've ever been taught about our bodies, like I didn't know that I had a different, like that I didn't know anything about my cycle till I was 30 years old. Like I didn't know anything about my body. All I knew is that things were uncomfortable and gross and like I didn't like the way it looked and like all of these things. But if we can strip away everything that we've like all these conversations that we've created about our bodies and our being as women, we are animals, we are primal beings. And I think that if we can remember that we can just really soften into what the reality is of being a human being and being a woman. And what coming home means to me is really releasing and getting rid of all of the noise in our lives. And to me, noise is really opinions, expectations, like all of the articles that you see that are like how to have the best pregnancy, or like get fit, stay fit during your pregnancy, or like 10 things you need in your nursery. And I did all that stuff with my first pregnancy. I focused so much more on having a pretty nursery than really understanding what my body wanted to do. And when we come home, we can come home to ourselves individually because everybody's experience will take them to a different place. But at the end of the day, I really see a world where women not only trust themselves, but trust each other, so that we're not like judging anybody for any decisions that they make, so that we're really just like celebrating. And this isn't even like a feminist rah rah. It's really just a, like, for me, it's very much like it just makes sense. Like, why these conversations that we've created around motherhood and becoming and being a woman are just false. Like, it doesn't make sense when you think about it. So yeah, coming home is really stripping away all of the noise and anybody else's opinion, and literally allowing your body to lead you where it wants to go. Because when we can do that, it's so much more easeful, because our body is not fighting to get through the noise. And oftentimes we'll never hear our body. We're just working through the noise, and that creates anxieties and stickiness and just like problems in and of itself. And now that I've had a totally undisturbed pregnancy and birth, and my body was able to like complete all the cycles, and like I recognize that. And I also see within this last 9 months, like it's vastly different than my first experience, because I'm not concerned as much. I still am a little. I shouldn't say I'm not this like perfect being by any means. I can see the difference that allowing your body to lead the way really does for your body. It just like clears the path. And so it's smoother. It's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's more natural,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like once we start to tune into, like you said, our primal beings and reconnecting to nature and to the natural cycles, I'm similar to you. I didn't really know anything about my cycle until I was, like close to 30 years old. And only now do I realize how much of an effect it has on how I speak, even how much energy I have. And now I know not to fight it, to just go with it, to let the tide kind of take me along for the ride without judgment or, shame on myself. It's like it allows you to just be and to relax and to, not like fight the current in a way. Yeah. I love the idea of, just coming home, letting go of the noise. I think so many women have that little pull for that. And for me personally, motherhood has really been the catalyst for my own personal transformation. It's been like stripping back all the layers, letting go of the conditioning, the things that I didn't even know were holding me back in a way. Somehow, becoming a mother just brought it all kind of bubbling to the surface for me to just kind of like, nope, need this, nope, don't need that. And it gave me like a confidence to really, like trust myself. And I feel like we're always looking for proof that we can trust ourselves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, having free birthing your baby, did that kind of help increase your trust? Was it like yes, I can do anything now?
So funny that you asked that, because I expected it to be this like massive celebration, and this like almost like not a badge of honor, but like a real like, I did that, like, go me. It was almost like this. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna want to pat myself on the back, and it's gonna be whatever. But honestly, it just feels complete. Like it doesn't feel like there's any other weight to it other than my daughter was born that day, and she was born at home. It was literally like a every other day, except like it was a normal day. It just ended in our daughter, and it was in my other daughter's sister. Like there was no like big climactic moment or anything. Like my birth was hard. I do want to say that it wasn't this like gentle birth that we see on social media, and like it wasn't, pain-free or anything like that. There was moments where I thought it was like, this is it. I'm not going to survive this. Like, just like it was a normal birth. Like the things all happened. And I think my husband was worried our neighbors would call the cops because I was like literally roaring in my bathroom, and we don't have a lot of insulation. Like it was a very animalistic, loud, very painful birth. But it really, when I look back on it, I look back on it with fond memories, and I look back on it knowing that I didn't experience any trauma in that birth. I really did not. And I can truthfully say that because I was in my own energy the entire time. I was able to move and go where I wanted to. My body literally just led the entire way, and it was able to complete every cycle that it needed to. And I'm so grateful because when I look back on my other birth, there was like, and I know that there's women who have much more traumatic births than a nice home birth, but the home birth still included energetic interference with like the removal of my placenta, sweeping of my cervix. Like my body was just wanted to do its thing, and there was still like energetic and like physical things happening to it. And now that I've birthed a different way, I get it. Like there's nothing to heal from with this birth, because it just like was so, my body just was able to do what it needed to do.
I love that. And when you think about what birth really is it's a bodily function.
Yeah.
It's like breathing. It's like pooping. Like
it is.
We don't at the end of the day go like, wow, look what I did today. Like, it's.
Oh, I love that perspective. Yes.
Because it really, when it's undisturbed and physiological like yours was, and when there isn't energetic interference, like you said, I love that term, then yeah, it is the most natural process.
I love that you said it. It's like a, those things that we do daily, because it really is like our bodies are incredible. They just do it. Like, I'm just fascinated with the fact that like my body grew this child in my arms here without me really doing, like I didn't do anything. It just like my body did it. And then it expelled this child without me really doing anything. I was just along for the ride, and it was like my human body, was feeling the sensations of it all and going through it. But the body was really just, it did it. And I love that you just compared it to pooping, because that's exactly right. Like it is. And I had her on the toilet actually, so that's funny.
Well, we started talking about poop. So although I know there is so much more we could touch on, I think this is a natural place to end for now. So thank you so much. Where can we find you and connect with you?
Well, my personal Instagram just got hacked and deleted. So you can find me at Hohmcoming on Instagram at HOHMCOMING, and at hohmcoming.com. And really, so Hohmcoming is like a community, but also we've got a pregnancy portal, which really is, my intention with that is to create space without telling you how to use that space. So there's meditation, there's movement, there is breath work on there specifically designed for pregnancy, and beyond. There's other stuff on there as well, but it's designed for the pregnant woman to like find that space in order to hear herself. But yeah, we're a community of really just like, you'll never see me saying like a 12-step process or like how to do anything. It's really, I really want to just hold space for you to find your own feeling in it all, your own sense. But you can find me there is probably the best, or just via email, and you can find that all via our website. And I'm Briana, so you can say hello to me personally. I'm the one on the other end.
There you have it. Episode 1 is in the books. Thank you so, so much for listening. You can find all the links to Briana, to Hohmcoming, to her Instagram in the episode description. And yeah, hop over to Instagram, come find me at nestandnourish_. Let me know what you thought about this episode, and rate and review this podcast if you enjoyed it. That would be oh so helpful, and I am so, so grateful. Thank you so much. I will see you in 2 weeks with episode number 2.